Sachiko is already nerfed. As soon as she got on the global server, she's already nerfed. So let's go over the nerfs real quick. Her S2 is now a 4-turn cooldown and her S3 is now a 5-turn cooldown. As compared to previously, she had 3 turns and 4 turns cooldown. So she is just miles better than Anki Chai, but now with this cooldown increase, it is not a good thing. But yeah, let's do some testing with her. Ocean set does work on her. I'm not going to show you, but it just does work. I already tested it out. Because this part of the passive, right, cannot be affected by any abilities. We have the same Esper that also does that, and it's Anki Chai. And Anki Chai can use Ocean set. Anki Chai can use Ocean set. She can also use Ocean set. I've already tested this out. And then the next part of the changes on her is that her R6, instead of giving 30% attack upon Inferno Espers critting, she now gives allied Inferno Espers deal 10% more damage upon landing a critical hit. Now this could be good and bad at the same time. It is good for units that have more than 300% multiplier on their attacks. So let's say for example like Embla on her S3, she only has 260% of attack, right? So this is only going to boost it by 26% because it does 10% final damage. Chloe on the other hand, she has a multiplier of 450% because 90% times 5, that's 450%, which means the buff that she gets from Sachiko is actually 45% final damage. But units like very low multiplier, like for example your S1, right? Your S1 is only going to get a boost of 13%. As compared to previously, Sachiko was giving a 30% damage upon any of your skills. If you crit, you will do 30% of your attack damage on any of your attacks, right? Yeah, she got a pretty massive nerf, especially the cooldown. And I'm going to show you real quick. The buff that she gives, the final damage buff 10%, is whenever you crit. So if you crit on all of your multi-stage attacks, you will get the 10% boost every single time. But if you don't crit on one of those hits, then you will not get the boost for one of that hit. You will still get the boost for the things that you crit, but the attacks that you don't crit, you don't get the boost. So let me just show you real quick. There we go, my Embla did 6298. If I remove Sachiko from the team, okay, now my Embla should do less than 6398 with a crit. There we go, 5726. It's a 10% boost, final damage boost. I've already tested her out in Sonica. I'll show you the team later. It's not too good. It's about the same score that I got previously, but let me just test her out in areas that she might be good in, which is going to be Shadowgale. I'm gonna do some blitz with her in Shadowgale because I think this is where she is going to shine the most. This is hard mode, and I'm gonna use Chloe just to demonstrate that she's gonna be the best pair with like Inferno Espers, that's for sure. This time I'm not gonna use Tever. Highly likely she's going to be good. Yeah, that's not too bad, 15.8 million, but again, I'm not using Tever this time around. With the Tever team, I can sometimes go, okay, 20 million, not bad. But she is filling the spot of Anki Chai. If you are running Anki Chai, then you need another attack buffer. With her, you don't really need to run Anki Chai because you don't really need to run an additional attack buffer, but due to her nerf, it's not really good to run her as your sole attack buffer unless she is extremely fast on ocean waves. She is not going to do much because her attack buff uptime is going to be 2 turns out of 5 turns. Her cooldown is 5 turns, which means she has a downtime of 3 turns, which is very bad. She's still a good unit, but she probably will not replace most of your attack buffer that you already have in the team unless you don't have much options, right? If your attack buffer is Dahlia, then she might be able to be swapped out with Dahlia. If you're already running like the Anki Chai comp, she might not replace it too well because of the attack buff uptime. 10% at the end of the day, 10% of final damage on only your Inferno Espers isn't really doing much. The biggest thing that she offers is her cooldown reduce, but because she is nerfed on her 3rd skill and 2nd skill, that has been quite a downfall for her. When you run her with Embla, you don't really want to reduce Embla's cooldown, because if you reduce Embla's cooldown, it means that Embla is going to be spamming her S2 more often than not. Because when she spams her S2, most likely the boss doesn't have the corrupted seed debuff, which means your DPS on Embla suffers. So it's not really a good idea to be cooldown reducing Embla, but cooldown reducing Brewster or Chloe is going to be very good. As you can see, my attack buff is not looking too good. My Chloe, even though Chloe extends her buff, she only has 1 turn of attack buff left, and I think when Sachiko gets her turn, she's not going to use the S3 because it's on a 5 turn cooldown, which is rather long. Yep, my Chloe is out of attack buff. My Brewster doesn't have attack buff. Any one of my team does not have an attack buff, which is very bad. If you are running Brewster, you want Brewster to have the attack buff at all times, because he does his attack outside of his turn. And units like Embla as well, you want her to have the attack buff at all times. Very bad attack buff uptime. I need to reiterate, the nerf is quite heavy on her. The cooldown increase on her 3rd skill and 2nd skill is very massive. I'm gonna show you my Sonica team real quick. I did one more run just to try whether it's better to run Abigail or her, and I got a 21 million run. But yeah, let me just show you what my Sonica team was using with her, and you'll see that the damage isn't really all that much. Okay, so I'm gonna do this just so you can see the team 3's damage. You don't really want to run her in like the 2nd team or the 1st team, because once again, you want her to be filled with like Inferno DPS units, so that her R6 comes into play. I'll do like 2 runs with this team and then 2 runs with Sachiko, and then you'll see the damage difference isn't really that much. Okay, 21 million again. So Yunchuan did 1 million. That's 2.4, around 3.8, somewhere around there, right? 3.8 million on my team 3. We'll go one more time, and then we'll switch to Sachiko, and then you'll see the damage is just not that much. So first one is 3.8. Second one, we did about around 3.6 million damage. Okay, that's Sachiko. I'm using Ocean Waves on her. The rest is unchanged, and I'll do 2 runs. We'll see if she does any better than Abigail, right? First team did about 3.8 and then 3.5 the second time around. Okay, 14.4. I think my team 1 did terribly. So this time around with Sachiko, I did 3.1, 3.7, 3.8. Yeah, about the same as I was running Abigail. One more time. I'm using her on Ocean Waves. I don't know if Sonica resets her cooldown. I will check this replay after this, but I don't think so. Yeah, that's very bad. 2.1 million, 2.8 million score. That's very bad. Yeah, I'll take a look at the replay real quick. If you don't have an Abigail, then you can use her, but I think it's still Dahlia might even be better than her, because the attack up duration is going to be better than what Sachiko can provide you. Alright, for those who don't know, when Sonica uses her S3, enters charge mode, during this time reduces speed and resets all enemy cooldown ability. So I want to see if this affects Sachiko's S3 and S2, because right here it states that it cannot be affected by any abilities, right? If it doesn't affect Sachiko's S3 and S2, then she's not going to be very good for Sonica, because the uptime on the attack buff and her buffs are not going to be high. So you might want to run a secondary attack buffer instead of just running Sachiko as your sole attack buffer, because her alone is not really going to cut it for you. Okay, so Sachiko has 1 turn left on her S3 and S2, and Sonica is about to use her S3 and reset all of my cooldown. So for reference, my Yunchuan just uses S3 and he has a 3 turn cooldown, right? So when Sonica uses her S3, Yunchuan will then reset his passive, or not passive, his S3. So now Yunchuan is at 0 turns, but Sachiko is at 1 turn, so it doesn't reset Sachiko's skills. And also Ahmed, because Ahmed also cannot be affected by any abilities. So yeah, she's not going to be good for Sonica. She might be good for Forbiter, just to reduce your cooldown, Not so much for the attack buff or the final damage that she can provide, but just for the ability to reset your cooldowns on her S3 and S2. But we already have that in Ggez, which is not better in a sense, because with Ggez he has a 4-turn cooldown, but his S2 doesn't really do much and it's very RNG, whereas Sachiko is a AoE wide cooldown reduce, right, on her S3 and S2. Yeah, with that being said, is Sachiko a bad unit? No. Is she overpowered as she was before? No. Was she overpowered? Yes. 3-turn and 4-turn cooldown, AoE wide cooldown reduce that cannot be affected by any abilities is overpowered, but now it's a little bit tame, and also the additional damage that she provides is actually less on most characters. Most Inferno characters don't really benefit much from a 10% final damage as opposed to additional 30% attack damage, because their multipliers are not that high. If you take a look at Emla, her S3 does about 260. Even Brewster would heavily benefit from the previous Sachiko buff, but now it's only a 10% final damage, which means he is only gonna get roughly around 11% damage, whereas previously he just straight up gets a 30% more attack damage increase. But yeah, that's about it. Ciao.